Hi guys, and welcome back here to another tutorial of the dev realm, and today we're going to talk about interface. So interface is something that we're going to be using in the future. Interface is basically, just a long story short, it's just a contract between your class to another class. You can send messages without casting. I know that in the previous tutorial I was talking about casting, and casting is a very useful thing in Unreal Engine, but if you're trying to create a game with performance, you're trying to, let's say you're creating a huge open world something, you probably want to use interface more often because they're as much powerful as casting. They take less resource for sure. It just takes some time to set up then properly. Right, so to get started in here, there's a couple of things that you're gonna have to do in here first before we can properly showcase the casting. Right, I'm not gonna do something too complicated. I'm just gonna do something very basic in here. Right, so how can you create an interface? So for this example, the story is that I'm gonna create a cube that when the player touches the cube, I can trigger an event on the player without having to cast from the player. So in this way, only the person or the actor that's listening to that event will trigger an action. Let's get started here. So the first thing you want to do here, if you want to use interface for your game, is basically we need to identify the problem and how we can achieve this. So I'm gonna go back to the third person here, blueprints. I'm gonna create another folder called test cube, right? And I wanna just create a blueprint class. Okay, I'm gonna create a simple actor. I'm gonna call BP demo test or something, nothing too complicated. I'm gonna open up this and I'm gonna add a cube, or actually let's add a sphere this time. Right, sphere. Actually, I want to add a sphere collision. Yeah, sorry. Here, sphere collision. Oh, okay. Now I'm gonna increase this sphere collision to, I don't know, 100 so we can see it. And the same thing here, let me expand this window. I am gonna make sure I can see in the game. So on the details tab, I'm just gonna search for hidden in game. I'm gonna mark this to switch that to false. Okay, compile and save. Awesome. Right, so right now we can bring this to the scene. So let's add the events here as you guys did in the previous lesson. So we're gonna select the sphere. On here we're gonna go to the events and we're gonna click on this one on components begin overlap, right? So right now we have the player reference. So if I do something like that, if I press the other actor, then I press play, you see that I have a message coming up. By the way, if you want to make this window a little bit bigger, I just go back here on these three dots and just press new window editor PI, and then you should have the window a little bit bigger, like full screen if you want to. So right now we got this working fine. And how can you trigger something on the player without using casting? Because normally you're gonna do cast to BP blah 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 and then that would work. Yeah, why would you not do this, right? So every time you cast, it consumes memory on your game. It's fine for things that widgets sometimes, something that happen very specific, sometimes you do need to use this, but for the most part, especially when you're triggering events or handling health or something like this, you don't need to do this. Right, so how would you do that? Really simple. So the first thing we're gonna do here is we wanna find where is our BP third person character. If you don't know where there is, if you are in the third person template, just go to content, go to third person blueprint, and here we go. Right, okay, so I'm gonna right click in here. I am gonna go to a folder, to an option here called blueprints, and this is new. We haven't been introduced to this before. Okay, there's a couple of concepts in that I didn't explain in the blueprint before, but as the series progresses, I'm gonna talk about more about this and that. Right, so the one we want here is the blueprint interface. Okay, so it doesn't show up in there. It needs to come in there and press blueprint interface. Right. How you call this? You can call whatever you want, but the idea is just to keep your project consistent. So let's start BPI, which means blueprint interface. And we're gonna call this character events, right? Event. Nice. Okay. Let's open up that. And the first time, the thing you're gonna notice in here is really weird. You can't do anything, you can create new nodes, you can only read only. And this is because this is the bridge between sending messages to the place where you want to handle the logic. So in here, I'm gonna delete this function. If you don't have anything, so if you just got this blank screen, that's fine. I'm gonna press add, so I'm gonna create a function, and I'm gonna call this, this is where a lot of people like to create those functions with different names. I always like to start with I dash, because that I know straight away there's an interface, but you can do anything that is better for your project. And the way I wanna create here is like the event name. So let's say spawn cube. Let's do something crazy. Right, cool. I spawn cube. Cool. And that's it, guys. So let's close this for now, which is great. And now if you open up your character, is that we need to handle this event in here somehow, right? You're probably thinking, okay, I can just right click in here and do something I spawn cube, but I can only send a message. I can handle the event. How can I add the event here? Really simple. So we need to add this blueprint interface to our blueprint actor. How you do this is just by going to the class settings, okay? In the class settings in the details tab here, you go interfaces, okay? So in that, I'm gonna press add, and I'm gonna search for my interface. So BPI dash character event. That's why it's always easy to keep the consistency, because you always know the BPI is blueprint interface, okay? So I'm gonna click on that, and there we go. So right now, we need to set up how we want to handle this logic. And if you notice in here, we go interfaces, right? You can also right click in there and search for I spawn cube, and now we have more options. We have call the function, we have call the event, and we can also add the event handler. I'm just gonna do it the easy way, just gonna right click in there and press implement events, okay? Nice. And right now what I want to do here is I want to, let's get a little bit fancy, let's spawn a cube or something like this, right? So what I'm gonna do here is I am gonna call a function node called spawn actor from class, right? We don't know what we want to spawn. Let's check what we have available here. Is this an actor? This is a static mesh, don't worry, right? So I'm just gonna create here another actor just to spawn stuff, just to make the game a little bit fun. So actor, I'm gonna call this BP spawn cube, right? There we go. So I'm gonna open up this, and here I'm gonna add a cube, a static mesh, okay? There we go. And let's check in here. Let's see if we can simulate physics. Simulate physics. Just hit this true, okay? Just so we have some fun, just so something happen. And also let's set up the mass in here to 35, which is the default for the rest, right? Compile and save. You don't have to do this. You can do any other event. I'm just doing this so I can have some kind of a feedback on the game, right? Okay, so now we're gonna compile and save here. We're gonna open up our third person character again. If you press compile and save, you're gonna see an error node, and you're probably gonna be like, okay, what's wrong with it, right? So the spawn node must have a class. So we need to specific say, what do we want to spawn? What we're trying to achieve here, right? And we want to spawn this BP-cube. So let's do that. So BP-spawn cube, right? Cool. And if I compile, I'm gonna have another error saying, okay, I need a spawn transform. Right, so if you have no idea what's a spawn transform, think about transform is basically the coordinates in the map or in the game level where is the cube location, okay? So as you can see here, just put this down there. So I have 700, this, I got all those crazy options in there, that this tells me exactly where is that cube in the scene. There's two different types of transforms. You got global and then you have local. So sometimes you can have a local transform in relation to a parent, but that gets too complicated. Let's just get the easy thing here, right? So what I want to do here is I want to spawn a cube on where's my player location, okay? And if you open up here the viewport, let me just open up here the viewport here just to see the player. I want to spawn a cube where is my player location in the world. How I can do this? Really simple. You go back here to the event graph. I'm gonna right click here and I'm gonna search for the property called self, right? This represents this class, okay, this whole class. So from here, I can call a node called get actor transform, right? And this will get the actor transform in relation to the word, okay? And then it's gonna plug in that. And that's it. Compile and save. Nothing too crazy. Nice. So now we're gonna go back to the demo test here. If you don't know what's this is the trigger, okay? That's the trigger. If you follow me here, that's the trigger. And now we need to trigger this event, and then that event will spawn this cube. How can we do this, right? So remember that, just to give a little bit of context, if you click on this icon there, it browses straight to the actor, so it's a very handy thing to have. If I right click the BPI character event, we have created this thing called iSpawnCube, right? So let's try to use this. So let's right click in there and let's try to search for i-spawnCube. Okay, we got a message. As you can see, this is trying to carry a message. So what do we need here? So we need a target. Who is listening for this message? So in this case is the actor that we have set up, our player in this case. But this is really useful because if you have, let's say, an AI that touched this cube, if it's not listening to this message, nothing's gonna happen. So you don't have to be very specific. You don't need to define, if this is equals, if this equals something else. You don't need to do any of this. You just put the message straight away. Right, now if I press play, we should have some feedback. There we go. So I got the cube there, spawning, right? It's probably not the best way of doing this, but it's spawning the cube for sure. And as you can see on my screen here, right? Just try to put this side by side, as you guys can see. Where's the game? Here. Nice. So if you see that, you see the message is sending and something's happening in the right location. But it's a really cool thing that if you learn it from the beginning, it's gonna make your games much more cleaner. So hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I see you in the next one.